Hi everyone, and welcome to our video lecture to prepare you ahead of class time about neuroscience-informed CBT, which is the topic of not only this class, but the next several classes. And actually in this video lecture, I'm going to basically give you the overview of what we're about to do across several classes. So you'll have one video lecture intro, if you will, to the next several weeks of class. So let's learn about the nCBT treatment phases a little bit and what we're going to be getting into. We're going to learn the attend, build, and connect paradigm. Phase 1, the attend paradigm, is attending to physiological reactions. This is where we develop rapport and assess the client. Phase 2 is building the brain from the bottom up, which is where wave 1 interventions come into play. Phase 3 is connecting the bottom to the top, which is wave 2 interventions. So let's look first at attending to physiological reactions, which is the first treatment phase. There is a three-step process that we'll be outlining in this first kind of phase of treatment. We'll be looking at assessing physiological functioning, or neurophysiological functioning, I should say, attending to neurophysiological responding in the actual session with the client. And then I should say, by the way, functioning, the first step is usually evaluating functioning in the client's daily life before they came into the first session. Whereas responding, the second phase, the second part of the second step, I should say, has to do with evaluating how the client is responding in the session itself. And then we also look at allegiance and expectancy. That's your own belief in the model and the client's belief in the model. While we're working with the client in session, we want to be assessing their response style in terms of how they deal with threats and stress in their lives. Do they tend to approach those stressors and move towards them, assertively confront the problem, perhaps even aggressively in a combative manner, which is problematic? Or do they try to avoid or move away from the problem? And that can also be problematic at times, such as social withdrawal, isolation, emotional numbing. Or do they reach a place of being motionless, of feeling frozen, feeling stunned by the stimulus or trigger, and feeling unable to make decisions in their life? This is an important component of assessment in the nCBT model, because really we want to tailor treatment to what is predominant and pressing. I'll add that we also assess whether wave 1 or wave 2 processes are predominant. And then we tailor the treatment as follows by either leading into wave 1 or wave 2 interventions. So we want to look at response style, and we want to look at the waves in which the client is predominantly responding from. Here is an interesting graphic that we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about in class. This is actually from a research study in terms of why some clients maintained an nCBT and continued to use the modality, found it successful and effective, versus others who left the study and did not find it effective and dropped out. And so we'll be talking about several components to how to effectively basically deliver nCBT. That includes the counselor's understanding and allegiance to the model, the counselor-client trust and trusting relationship, the counselor's delivery, suggestion, and salesmanship, the client's understanding, willingness, and expectancy, and then whether or not outside of session practice happens and whether the client sees results. After we've talked about the first treatment phase, and there is a lot more that we haven't spoken about because I don't want to give too much of my hand away. I want you to be somewhat surprised of what's coming at you. So there's a little bit more, of course, that we're going to be getting into for that treatment phase. That will then move into the second treatment phase, and that's building the brain from the bottom up. The goal for this treatment phase is to relearn another automatic wave 1 response and shift the set point for stress response to balance the autonomic nervous system. So we target implicit processing in this treatment phase. The goal is for the client to be able to ride the wave of wave one experiences rather than respond reactively or try to stop them, to activate the parasympathetic branch of the ANS to achieve a smooth recovery, and to develop capacity for wave two interventions, which, for example, looks like top-down meaning making and reappraisal. So first, wave one interventions are often indicated before wave two. Here are some of the interventions we'll be exploring a lot in class. We actually be doing a lot of practice. You'll get to, try these out and do some role plays. Affective modeling, supporting optimal brain health and reducing neurophysiological susceptibility. That looks like lifestyle intervention. Sensory-based coping, mindful awareness, systematic desensitization, and then biofeedback and neurofeedback, which we've covered previously in class. We'll go through some special considerations too for wave one interventions, such as risk of harm to self or others, panic attacks, and working with adolescents. After we've covered the second treatment phase, we'll move into the third treatment phase, which is connecting the bottom to the top. The rationale here is that the goal of this treatment phase is to modify the appraisal and reappraisal processes of the client, which helps them with meaning making. We want to promote top-down regulation, increase the functioning of the prefrontal cortex, anterior cingulate cortex, and hippocampus, work at the level of the conscious and explicit awareness here, and because of this, self-monitoring plays an essential role for the client to be aware of what's happening to them and then be able to reappraise. This strengthens cortical limbic connectivity, and most of the skills that we'll be going over in class are top-down regulation skills, therefore. It's important to mention, before I share with you what skills we'll be learning about, that wave one interventions usually precede wave two interventions, even in cases when the client is experiencing symptoms from both a wave one and wave two process. It's important to look at wave one interventions because automatic implicit responding in wave one will alter appraisal processes in wave two. So in other words, if you don't intervene in wave one, you're going to find the back end of that, the influence in wave two anyway, which makes intervention at wave two less helpful. Here are some of the interventions we'll be learning about: connecting behaviors and emotions to physiological states, self-acceptance and compassion, reappraisal, and exploring implicit schema. And we'll be using both the downward arrow technique and free association in that in that technique. I should also mention that a reappraisal has a very different feel in nCBT than traditional CBT. For example, we use experience to dispute. We'll be talking much more about that in class. And of course, as with wave one interventions, there'll be plenty of opportunity for role playing and for you to try your hand at it. We'll then move to case closure and discuss, as we, for example, when working with a client, the kinds of prompts that would be helpful. Here are some prompt examples. As we talk about ending counseling, what are you noticing about your body and feelings? Now that you're aware of this, what do you think about this? What are you noticing about your body and feelings? Where is this coming from and what is familiar about this? What does that mean to you and what do you want to do next? I'm again going over this very quickly, but we'll be spending a lot more time on it in class. I want to say, before I close, a couple things. The first is that it's important for you to understand that the ABC framework, the Attend, Build, Connect framework, to address wave one and two, is useful not only across the course of treatment, and I'm talking here 20, 30 sessions, but also within a single session. And let me explain a little bit about that, and then we'll discuss much more in class. That essentially you can attend to physiological reactions. You can help build the brain from the bottom up and connect the bottom from the top within a single session. And that's important because clients often need to become aware of what's happening in their body and how they're responding, what's happening with their cognitions. They need to be able to develop different ways of responding automatically and be able to reappraise their experience based on their current experience in the session with you. So we'll be talking a lot more about that in class as well. I want to close by saying that it's very important for you to be reading the treatment manual ahead of class time. Some of the things that we go over in class will make a lot more sense if you are familiar already. So if you haven't already done the reading around the treatment manual, please be sure to do so before class, because I think it'll enrich your experience significantly. All right, everyone, that about wraps us. I will see you all in class, and we'll dig more into the treatment manual and how to implement nCBT. And I think it'll give you some nice, tangible things to use with clients, which will be a nice outcome of this class for you.